encourage you to make that decision tomorrow, to go in and to do it. Make the hard decisions. That's what leadership is about. If you're not willing to make the hard decisions, because it's usually the hard decisions that are going to move your organization on further and further. If you're not willing to make the hard decision, your organization is just going to stop. Because it's usually the hard decisions that you make that open up the organization and allow you to move to the very next level. What is that hard decision? I would encourage you by the end of tonight to sit down and to write down what time you will make it, what you will do, and how you'll carry it out. Now, the third skill that I want to talk to you about is execution. I'm talking about carrying out your plan. How many of you remember a couple years ago, Fortune magazine did a cover article called Why CEOs Fail? They went out and they did all this research, and they asked CEOs and organizations and the VPs who served underneath of them, what were the components of your overall drive, and what were the reasons in which you failed? And they went into it with a bias. They thought that it would probably be lack of vision. The writers went in, they thought it's probably a lack of vision, because vision is usually the thing that people talk about. Lack of vision, lack of goals, those kinds of things. What they found, the answer to why CEOs fail, is they didn't execute. They didn't carry out the plan. See, vision is almost this it's this overarching, overwhelming, over-talked about, pithy little thing. So much so that George Bush Sr. called it the vision thing. Now that's sad in a way, because vision is very, very important. But what is vision if you never do it? See, again, I get down to this idea of action. What will you do tomorrow when you go into work? How many of you could probably, if I were to pull you up here on stage, could in a short, brief moment of time, 30 seconds, give me the vision of your organization? Raise your hand. How many of you could tell me what the vision of your organization is? But then let me ask you this. How many of you are actually carrying it out? How many times have you been part of an organization that spent 6 weeks, 6 months, or a year going through the development of a vision statement or a mission statement? And then you get it drawn up in calligraphy, and you get it framed, and it goes in everybody's office, and then you never do it. It happens over and over and over and over again. So you've got 3 skills so far. You've got communication. Do it more often, understand the difficulty of it, and listen. You've got making hard decisions. What is the hard decision that you are going to have to make tomorrow when you go back into that office? You've got execution. What can I do tomorrow? Maybe you've got this vision. What can you do tomorrow? You're not going to execute the whole plan tomorrow, but what can you do tomorrow to start the execution of the process? One simple step. The first step. Life is not made in huge jumps. It's made in step by step by step. Now the last one, realistically assess your employees. Now here's why. Many people are in the wrong position. They're just in the wrong position. They're good people. They're great people. You put them in the right position, they would execute in the finest ways. But we're frustrated, and they're frustrated because they're in the wrong position. It's the leader's job to realistically assess whether or not that person is in the right position. Now think about all the things that go into this. I know you're thinking, oh man, you probably all have a name. That person is in the wrong position. But I can't say anything to them because, all heck would break loose. But that takes us back to the second point, hard decisions. I would imagine that tomorrow, if you were to go in and to be a strong, extraordinary leader, there might be people you need to let go. You need to say, you know what? It just isn't a fit. It causes me pain. It causes you pain. It causes the organization pain. But you know what? The best thing that's ever going to happen to you is if you're going to be let go and to go do something else. I learned a great lesson from a guy that I've had the opportunity to become friends with. His name is Bob Paquin. He is the COO of a company called Blue Nile. He used to be the COO of LL Bean. I heard him give a speech once, and he said, he was talking about all these hard decisions, and he talked specifically about firing people and all the wonderful things that have come out of his history in firing people. Now you think, well, he must be just a sadist if he's going to just get joy out of firing people. He said, no, it's because the only people that ever got fired were people that didn't belong there anyway. They were frustrated. I was frustrated. The organization was frustrated. And most people say, well, I'm too nice of a guy. I'm too nice of a lady. I can't go in and fire somebody. That would be beyond my scope. Bob said something really interesting. He said, I can't tell you how many times I've walked in and said, I need to let you go. And in my job, I made the hard decision. I was a leader. I made the decision. I fired the person. And when 5 o'clock rolled around, I took him out to dinner and I helped him do his resume and get a new job. You can still be a good person. You can still be a good human being to make that hard decision and to move people into the right position. And he also said, I can't tell you how many people have come back to me and said, I didn't like it at the time, but it's the best thing that ever happened to me. I went and got this job, and I just flourished. Would you be willing to go into your place of employment tomorrow and make the hard decision and communicate and execute the plan by realistically assessing your employees' skills to maybe move them into a different position? Maybe move them out. One of the problems that we have oftentimes is, this is what happens. If you're a good teacher, if you're a great teacher, what do you become? Principal. Different skill set. That's why you have a lot of great teachers who go into being principal and they fall apart and they can't do it. Now, if you're the best salesperson, what do you become? Sales manager. Different skill set. Now, we've talked about the skills. Let's move into the character issues. And I got 3 specific character issues that I'd like to share with you in the last few moments here. The first one is relationships. Now, if you're like most people, you probably say, wait a minute, relationship sounds more like a skill. There are relational skills. But I would say that the underlying thing about relationships is more an issue of character. It's more an issue of values. It's more an issue of what you believe about other people. You see, it's easy to go into a place of employment and to bump up against other people for 8 hours a day, and maybe they say something that rubs you the wrong way. Maybe they do something that causes a broken down relationship. It's easy in our day and age of throwaway relationships to make that value decision inside that says, I'm just not dealing with her anymore. I'm not going to give that guy any more time. I would say that that's an issue of character. People are too important. And your organization will never go as far as it needs to go or can go until those relationships. Now, I'm not saying you have to be lovey-dovey and do group hugs and all that kind of stuff, but I am talking about valuing the relationships enough that you will then move into the skill base of relational skills that you need to create those relationships. And you say, okay, Chris, that sounds all warm and fuzzy. What can I do tomorrow? I want you to think about that person. You know who I'm talking about. That person bugs you to death, annoys you, maybe even treated you wrongly at one point in your life or your career. I encourage you to take them to lunch tomorrow and say, you know what, I'm making a decision about how I value other people. It's a decision for me as a human being, but it's also a decision for our organization. Because I know that our organization will never go further until you and I have settled our issues and at least begun to appreciate one another and work together and to value one another. Could you do it? Could you walk into the office tomorrow and say, you know what, I'd like to take you out to lunch. I'll buy my treat. I don't want to go into the big thing right now, but I just want to tell you, I kind of want to bury the hatchet and let's get over some of these things and start moving on. That's leadership. Why is it leadership? Because you're going to initiate. Leaders are initiators. They're the people who make things happen. They're catalytic. They make things happen. Now, please, don't any of you ask me to go to lunch tomorrow. Could you go in and ask them to go to lunch? That's something right now leadership. Tomorrow morning, walk through the office, stop by their cubicle and say, what are you doing for lunch? Even if their lunch plans are already taken. They're going to be blown away by the fact that you even asked what their lunch plans are. You see, leadership is always about relationships. We talk about leading systems or leading organizations or leading businesses. You don't lead that. It's a misnomer. We do not lead organizations. We do not lead churches. We do not lead businesses. We do not lead nonprofit groups. What do we lead? People. Well, is people. And the minute you begin treating people as a unit, you're not going to be able to lead, because people are different. Everybody reacts to things differently. Everybody's wired differently. Some people are task-oriented. Some people are big-picture-oriented. You've got to realize that as a character issue, to appreciate and value individual people in individual ways, that's the kind of right-now leadership you can start tomorrow, and will begin to increase your influence with people's lives. The next one is integrity. I probably don't even need to beat this drum very much, just because of what's going on. We can just open the newspaper and go through over and over and over again. And quite frankly, I don't think we have an integrity crisis now. I think we're more aware of integrity breakdowns. You see, people are people. And people have been doing crazy things and ripping people off ever since human history began. You know, G.K. Chesterton gave a great quote. I don't know if you remember G.K. Chesterton, but he said, original sin is the only philosophy empirically validated by 3,500 years of human history. You look back over the annals of time and you will see that we have breakdowns of integrity all the time. We know more about them now. We hear more about them now, but mainly because of mass media. People have been ripping people off forever. People have been hurting other people forever. I don't think we have an integrity crisis, but I do think integrity is something we need to take seriously as leaders. Why? Because people are going to look at you and they're going to ask, either consciously or subconsciously, do I trust this person? One of the greatest things that ever happened to me in my understanding of this idea of integrity was I was reading through a book. I don't even remember what the book is. I was reading through the book with a group of people I was taking through a leadership class, and the author made this point about the word integrity. Now think about the root word integrity. It shares, integrity shares the root word with another word that we all learned, well, I never took this class, but you all learned in high school math. Does anybody remember what an integer is? What's an integer? An integer is a whole number. And this author unwrapped that issue of a whole number is an integer, and integrity is the idea of being whole. It means you don't lead half your life this way and half your life this way. You don't lead a third of your life this way and a third of your life this way and a third of your life this way. It means when somebody looks at you, they see a whole person. They know that when you speak, you are telling the truth because you are a person who tells the truth. They know that when you say you are going to do something, you're going to do it. Why? Because you're a person who does what they say they're going to do. My question for you would be to look inside your life tonight as you go from this place and you go home and you do your things before you get to work tomorrow. Say, what issue of my life is not whole that my employees can see? And that's an issue that you can rectify. One of the analogies I like to use with groups that I talk to is you're driving down the road and you've got a client or an employee and they're sitting over there and the cell phone rings and you pick it up, and let's just use a salesperson for example, and you're going, yeah, we can make that work. I was just on my way over there, and you're winking at the person next to you and you're kind of chuckling about it because they know you're putting one over on the person on the cell phone, right? And you think, oh man, I pulled that one off. But what did you just do? You just told that person sitting next to you, I'm not a whole person. I tell the truth sometimes. I lie sometimes. Now, a few days later, you're driving down the road, cell phone rings, and who is it on the telephone? It's that person that was sitting with you a few days later, and they say, hey, what are we going to do about the Johnson account? And you say, yeah, about the Johnson account. What we're going to do is, they won't follow you because they don't know anymore. They can't trust anymore. There's always the question in their mind. Will it really take place? Does she really mean it? Is he really capable of doing what he says he's going to do? I love that concept of wholeness. And I remember that all the time. The integer, it's a whole number. Are you whole? Think about that before you march into your place of work tomorrow morning. What issue do I need to make whole? Maybe there's somebody that you've lied to in your place of employment. You want to break down communication. You want to break down relationships. You want to break down the execution of a plan. You want to break down the forward movement of your organization. Just lie to somebody. Maybe what you need to do is go in there tomorrow and say, I need to make things whole. Hey, let's go to lunch and maybe you can kill two birds with one stone. You're going to take him to lunch because you never liked him anyway, which is the reason you lied to him in the first place. You're going to say, I lied to you, we need to settle this, and I'm going to take you to lunch and I'm going to buy because we need to develop our relationship a little bit. Why? So that we can become better people, so our organization can move forward. And the last one, it's humility. You want to be a better leader. I want to talk to you about humility. When I was 11 years old, I got the best job of my life. When I was 11 years old, I got a job that was better than the job I had.